guys, what is going on? Welcome back. Justin here. As always, thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me today. Today we're going to be talking about one of my hands down all-time favorite movies ever. Before we get into that, I'm going to give you guys just a couple seconds to please go down below, like this video. You know it helps out. It helps me a lot. It helps the channel out a lot. And of course, drop a comment down below and let me know what you think about today's movie. I'm sure you guys have some thoughts. I'm currently actually right in the middle of my Midnight Mass episode breakdown series, Mike Flanagan's new Netflix series. It's incredible. Mike Flanagan, you might know from Haunting of Hill House, Gerald's Game, Dr. Sleep, Oculus. He's an incredible writer-director, and Midnight Mass is just an amazing show. But I wanted to break up the monotony so that my channel wasn't Midnight Mass every day for 2 weeks. So to do that, I picked a movie that I don't have to look up a bunch of information about. I could talk about this movie all day with my eyes closed. And that movie is Eli Roth's 2006 movie, Hostel. You know, as horror fans, we tend to watch the same movies we've seen a million times. We watch the same movies over again. There's usually a handful of those movies that we watch more than anything else. And for me, this is at the top of that list. Now, the first weekend that this movie was out in 2006, it made almost $20 million. At the end of its theatrical run worldwide, it made over $80 million. This movie was a huge success for Eli Roth after a modest success with Cabin Fever, which is another one of my favorite movies. I feel like Eli Roth's first three movies, Cabin Fever, Hostel 1 and 2, are sort of his sweet spot. That's the stuff that I love the most from Eli Roth. I wish he would have sort of continued down that path, but we'll save all that stuff for another video. But guys, I love this movie. And this movie came at just the perfect time when horror was needing something else. The last gasp of the slasher had already passed. By the year 2000, Scream 3 was already released. We had our last Friday the 13th movie in 2002. Nightmare on Elm Street was already done with just the last gasp in 2003 with Freddy vs. Jason. The slasher was sort of done, and something had to come along and sort of take the reins in horror, and I believe it did with the torture porn movies. I don't say whatever you will about that era of horror. At the time, these movies were absolutely exploding. I Spit on Your Grave remakes and all of these crazy handheld shaky cam, really movies that really were pushing the limit. At that time, it was like, how gross could you be? How offensive could you be? Political correctness at the time just was not a thing. I'm not a big fan of picking movies apart for their subject matter or their dialogue or the things that they talk about in the movies. I tend to not care. Every time I listen to movie podcasts, I hear them, it's actually a little problematic when you watch it today. And when you watch this movie, it's actually kind of problematic. It's like, sure, I get it. You can say that, and I don't disagree that obviously some of the things that are said in Eli Roth's movies, his like frat boy humor and some of the offensive jokes, just probably wouldn't be in a movie now. I get that, but we're talking about a movie from 2006, nearly 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So it was just a different time. And with Hostel, Eli obviously had a bigger budget than he did with Cabin Fever. This movie looks polished. The gore is top notch. The production value, the sets, everything looks so great. It was shot overseas in Europe, so it just feels really authentic. It's just an incredible movie of its time. It's sort of one of a kind in my opinion. And we have Eli Roth paying homage to some of his favorite directors. In fact, we have cameos from Takashi Miike. We have just some of the most amazing, memorable gore scenes where you just really highlight these gore scenes really as set pieces. The set pieces are not action sequences like an action movie. The set pieces are gore gags. We have the Achilles tendon scene. We have the what Eli Roth calls the eyegasm, where he cuts her fucking eye off. There's really no reason for him to cut her eye at that moment in time, but we just needed a gore scene, and it's just so satisfying. The movie follows Josh and Paxton as they backpack through Europe before they finish college, just having their last good times before the real world kicks in. They meet up with an Icelandic guy named Ollie, who's the party guy in their group, and as they're making their way to Spain and stuff, they meet a guy who can help them out with the ladies and help them find some girls. And he points them in the direction towards Slovakia and Bratislava, to where they can find the prettiest girls, the best women that are down to do anything. This guy with this weird thing on his lip, and they go to this hostel. Which we later find out, of course, I'm assuming you guys have all seen this, but which is really a hub for this international human trafficking thing where rich people pay to torture people. And it's just such a fun movie. The characters, of course, are bro-ish. The dialogue is pretty, you know, whatever, but something about the movie just works. It just works. It's so unbelievably watchable movie. The score is amazing. The music in this is great. The camera work is honestly really, really great too. Every time I watch this and Hostel 2, it just reminds me that, you know, Eli Roth is a great filmmaker. Like other filmmakers like him, like Rob Zombie or whoever you may throw at the wall, may not be the best at writing dialogue, but when it comes to creating a visually interesting movie, Eli Roth does that. And Hostel, in my opinion, just succeeds in every way. Especially the aesthetic, how the beginning of the movie starts out so colorful and everybody's vibrant. And by the end of the movie, all of the color, the degradation and the color is sucked out of the movie to where he finally meets the two girls again at the end. We're in that dingy bar and he's trying to find Josh and figure out what the hell happens. They look pale and gaunt and the movie just deteriorates. I'm hoping that we get to another point in horror where there's a shift. And I think it's kind of happening now, especially with James Wan's *Malignant*, showing audiences and studios that people will like something that's not part of a franchise and not part of, you know, some bullshit sanitized version of horror. A lot of modern horror, with the exception of a few auteurs like, you know, Ari Aster and Joe Begos and the directors that I talk about a lot on this channel. Horror has been in a stale place again, like it was in the early 2000s, with every other movie being a Conjuring spinoff or an exorcism movie or The Nun. We need a resurgence of creativity, and I'm hoping that comes soon. Like I said, James Wan's *Malignant* was a shining star for me to hopefully get some weird back into horror. Maybe we're about ready to have a creature feature renaissance, just like the torture porn era had brought a whole new level of gore and everything. Maybe we can start getting more creature features. Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to talk about Hostel today. This month, maybe I'll talk about my other Eli Roth movies. I've wanted to do an Eli Roth ranking for a while, so maybe I'll eventually do that. But I absolutely love this movie. If you have not seen Hostel, I highly suggest it. It's one of my favorite movies. I got this old steelbook. We need a 4K. We really need a 4K of Hostel, but I got this steelbook off Zavvi a few years ago. Guys, that is my review of Hostel. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe, like this video, drop a comment down below, and I think we're done here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Stay weird. Remember to always be yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.